Triton wasn't just a whale. He was something older, something deeper. In the fathomless depths of the Indian Ocean, Triton swam with a purpose most creatures couldn't fathom, his massive body gliding through the blue like a comet in the night sky. His kind had swum here since before men had words for gods. Yet even in the quiet sanctuary of the deep, he felt it, a pull, a whisper. He hadn't known the name. Mountains were of no use to creatures born to salt and current, but the shape had haunted his dreams since he was but a calf, flickering like the shadow of a leviathan. In his vision, Everest wasn't just a mountain. It was a towering cathedral of ice and stone that hummed with power. Triton didn't understand it, but he didn't need to. Some whispers didn't demand explanation, just action. He began to change, his body bulking with muscle beyond what even the fiercest orca could boast. On the ocean floor, he hauled stones as heavy as islands, his fins gripping and dragging. He wrestled giant squids, their tentacles leaving scars on his thick, blubbery hide. He trained endlessly, not just for strength, but for survival. Triton developed a way to writhe across land, his fins curling inward, his body pushing like a rolling tidal wave. It was grotesque, painful even, but it worked. He was becoming something new, a hybrid forged of obsession. The night before his departure, Triton drifted into a kelp forest and let the current sway him like a child in a cradle. He spoke to his ancestors, ancient whales who had once sung songs that kept the oceans in harmony. Their voices answered him in deep, resonant tones. They didn't say yes, they didn't say no. They simply watched, the way stars watch a desperate sailor. The journey began at the mouth of the Ganges. The river fought him at every turn, but Triton's body, rippling with muscle and shimmering with determination, forced itself upstream. Villagers along the banks whispered of the behemoth, their prayers a mixture of awe and fear. Some thought him a god, others a demon. Either way, they stayed far away as his massive shadow churned the waters into chaos. When the river became too shallow, he left the water behind. His passage scarred the earth, leaving massive troughs where his bulk had dragged and pressed. He moved tirelessly, resting only when he could submerge his body in lakes to regain buoyancy. Forests trembled under his weight. Herds of deer scattered at the sight of him. And always Mount Everest loomed ahead, growing closer, growing hungrier. By the time he reached the base of the Khumbu Icefall, Triton was already more legend than creature. The air was thin, but his lungs, once built for water, had adapted to breathe it. His heart hammered slower, harder, pushing his blood through arteries thickened for the task. The icefall was a labyrinth of shattered glaciers, a trap for even the most experienced climbers. But Triton was relentless. He wound his way through crevasses that could swallow mountains, dragging himself upward, his fins cracking against ice as hard as stone. Avalanches roared like hungry beasts, but he didn't flinch. Then came the crack, a sound like the world splitting open. A wall of ice collapsed above him, a monstrous wave frozen in time. He roared and struck with all his might. The boulder shattered into icy shrapnel, but pain coursed through his body, leaving deep gashes. He bled, dark and steaming, onto the white snow. The mountain had wounded him, but he pushed on. By the time he reached the South Pole, his massive body was battered and frostbitten. Each movement was agony, but he pressed forward, one heaving push at a time. He was no longer just Triton the whale. He was something else entirely, part spirit, part beast, a creature forged by his own obsession. The summit was close. The air was so thin that even the sun seemed distant, but Triton didn't stop. His mind floated outside of himself, his body moving in a rhythm dictated by something primal. something ancient. And then, finally, he was there. The summit of Everest stretched out around him, a desolate, frozen plateau that pierced the heavens. The wind howled like a chorus of banshees, but Triton didn't care. He let out a scream, raw, guttural, and alive. It echoed across the Himalayas, a sound no human would ever hear, a sound that would haunt the mountains forever. The descent was no easier. His wounds froze over, and exhaustion clawed at him with icy fingers. But he survived. The pull that had driven him upward now guided him back to the sea. Weeks later, when he plunged into the Indian Ocean, his body convulsed in relief. The salt water stung his wounds, but it also healed them. Triton drifted in the deep, his enormous heart beating in slow, steady rhythms. He had done it. He had answered the call of the mountain. As the currents carried him into the depths, a thought stirred in his mind. Everest was behind him now, but the world was vast, and there were other whispers, other mountains, and Triton, the impossible whale, would always listen.